Morning, and thank you very much for joining us. So, who was I speaking with? My guest this morning, Dr. G.D. Johnson, Nigeria Institute of Journalism. Thanks as always for coming on.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Sharing this platform with you is learning from the sage. And
oh dear, doctor, you're invaluable to us because what we do on the program is analyze, we inform, we analyze, and we thought we wanted to get your perspective. I always think of it as getting the perspective of a teacher of journalism. This is what it's all about. And sometimes journalism is not the easiest of things. And that's the perspective we want to take the whole Borno massacre story from. That's the word. This word is a very sensitive word in Nigeria, massacre. There was a time when it was used in relation to NSAS, and people spent a whole lot of time analyzing the word massacre. Well, it's come up again now. People are talking about massacre. And it's because yesterday the report was 110 farmers killed, civilians. Then later on, I saw another. The figure started shifting. From Saturday, I think the worrying figure was 43. That was worrying. Then it sort of was it 53 or 43 started shifting. By the time we were talking about 110 in the morning, I believe the military have, considered a lesser figure, somewhere around 65 or something like that. So, look, even if it is one or two. There is ideologically even one was too many to be to lose their life in this kind of a situation. What do you think about the shifting figures?
Well, Uncle, first and foremost, I'm wearing black, and because black is symbolic with money in our culture, in our part of the world, because we have lives lost on the 29th of November. Let's forget about the figures. Let's just talk about the lives. We'll come back to the figures.
And we'll talk about civilian lives.
Yeah. And
because
about
it's important to...
41 days ago, lives of young Nigerians singing the national anthem were lost that we have not found an explanation to. And we are trying...
That's the
NSAS protest. And we're still trying to find explanation to what happened on Sunday. And we have moved from 43 to 65, 65 to 103, and what's the value of the life of an average Nigerian? If this had happened in the United States of America, I'm sure the flag will be flown half-mast, a national day of mourning will be declared, and it means nothing to those in authority, that society has almost lost its conscience, that Nigerians
Gide, one moment there. I don't know if personally I would go as far as
because what stops the flag of Nigeria being
that the authorities are not affected?
No, what stops the flag of Nigeria being half-mast? We saw what happened last month when America sent its Marine to come into Nigeria to rescue. If the reverse is the case, what will happen? Okay. So essentially, what is the value? The key element is what's the value of an average Nigerian life? The real essence of government is to protect the life and property of its citizenry. And now we're talking about numbers, shifting numbers. They were butchered. And
the stories were horrible.
There's no explanation to that effect.
Even allegations that some of them had their throats slit. Some reports initially reported being beheaded.
You know how I describe the governor of Borno State? He's a governor he's a cat. And we say someone is a cat, someone that has 9 lives. Yeah. You know how many times he will have...
He has escaped.
He has escaped dead by the skin of the feet. And then we have seen what is happening in the state. You saw what you read what the governor said, that we need to hire mercenary to fight Boko Haram. And that tells you what's wrong with the issue of security architecture of Nigeria. What's that team, and why is that team still in place? If in other climes, heads will have rolled. People will have taken responsibilities. Now, if the life of the chief security officer of the state, who happens to be the governor, was almost snuffed out on 2 or 3 occasions, and then the lives of an average citizen were snuffed out just like that by terrorists, not insurgent. Anyone using the word insurgent to describe Boko Haram is being unfair to this nation, and then it's still business as usual.
Well, when you say business as usual, I understand, because it goes back to the earlier comment you made, but perhaps because the government isn't being as demonstrative as, for example, flying the flag at half-mast. That is one symbol.
Yeah.
Perhaps the government hasn't done that. But I don't know that that immediately translates to them being unmoved. Remember, there was criticism for the president back in the day that he hadn't visited. I can't remember what calamity it was. I think it was something to do with Boko Haram too, where they had wreaked havoc. Some commentators had said that the president had not shown that he cared. He hadn't been there. Well, I'm not a spokesman for them, but perhaps those symbols not being used, because when we discussed this topic yesterday, I think one person at least called in and said that, look, this is not a case of he thought he was thinking yesterday, and I imagine he still thinks so today, that the authorities are doing the best that they can, but not very many other callers yesterday, sympathized with that point of view. So it's and the only person who can properly speak now is I think the director of military intelligence. So there's a problem. We have a problem here, because this takes us back to what government has been telling us about the campaign against Boko Haram and how well we are doing and how they are on the back foot and how this is the dying throes. If you see anything happen, these are the dying throes. But I made the point yesterday that it does appear that these terrorists are making a ring, they're running a ring around our boys. Now the governor has actually come out and said it, that perhaps we should be hiring mercenaries.
Ongori, last week,
we're in a mess.
Last week, the Sultan of Sokoto said that the north is the most dangerous place and difficult place to live in now.
He did say so.
The Sultan of Sokoto,
no less,
was a retired red-star, redneck Nigerian military. In actual sense, it was his appointment as the Sultan that led to his retirement. If such instructive statement, and 3 days after he made that statement, we witnessed what happened in Borno State. You see, this is not about blaming someone or playing games with blames or the rest of it. This is about reality. I'm sure if we go to do a review with respect to issues of security, with respect to the need for the presidency to rejig its security architecture, I'm sure we'll have a whole day clip of different commentators of what they have said concerning, Mr. President, why don't you change the architecture? Someone said, for us to do the same thing, the same way, and the same manner, and expect to get a different result, marks the beginning of insanity. It means that you are not learning from your mistakes. Now, if we look at the fight against terrorism, we only started with Boko Haram. Now, we have seen banditry in the northwest, Boko Haram in the northeast, and then we have seen different types of violence, man-slaughtering, killings going on in the north central, and kidnapping along Abuja-Kaduna corridor. The question you ask is, what is the brief of the security chiefs? How do you justify the humongous money government agencies and the rest of it collect as security votes? Why should the National Assembly or the State House of Assembly make allocations for security votes for their governors, security votes for the presidency, the military, and other security agencies, when the primary purpose of having those resources are not being fulfilled? Now it's like you are putting your money down the drain. Why not have a change? Look, Ogyori, in football, let me use the analogy of, if a team is not playing well, the owner, quote unquote, is the president. Let me put it that way. The coach of the team are the security chiefs. Are you getting my point? The rank and file are the players. Now, if they are not playing, who do they fire? Do they fire players or do they fire the coach? And some of us have said it repeatedly, that if I were to be the president, and I remember I said it concerning the NSAS protest when I came in, that it's about intelligence gathering. Winning warfare is strategic, and it's about intelligence gathering. How can we not get the intelligence to prevent What is happening? What are the resources that are devoted to that?
You know, you said something in there, and I don't know if you yourself know how important it was. What is the brief? Just a simple, you know, forward sentence. What is the brief? We've asked this question before, and it's coming from the background of, can we really say that a ragtag, you know, organization, let me call them that, the ragtag organization like Boko Haram, can be running rings around that is the Nigerian military? Someone said, what is the brief that the military has? The military doesn't just get up and do things, you know, because this is the right thing to do, or this is what I feel like doing. I have it on good authority that the military goes on missions and there are definite orders, and they will not go beyond their brief. I mean, the brief is the brief. Now, if that is true, then you have to question, what is the brief? Why
Given
can't
to our military.
Given to our military. Why can't the military, to use an Americanism, take out Boko Haram?
Uncle Yori, you remember that Major General that went viral online that said that they needed equipment?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that general has been court-martialed, judgment has been passed, and his sentence is for him to be demoted for 3 years, and his orderly will spend 28 days in prison for trying to draw light to the need for government and for his service chief to provide him with the resources that's required. We are people, I have said something. We are a nation that people don't like to make reference to documented evidence based on the fact that they don't like the messenger and not the message. Anyone that cares to listen needs to go and read the letter Obasanjo wrote to Jonathan in 2013. The 8th page and the last paragraph with issues that have to do with security and all the things Obasanjo outlined in that letter are playing out and are still playing out. Beyond the insurgency, what are the things that are involved in it? These are factors. These are critical factors. He talked about human trafficking. He talked about gun running. It's there. The letter is there. It's in the public domain that he wrote to Jonathan concerning it. He talked about kidnapping. Every issue he raised in that page 8 of that letter, I think it was 13th page, page 8 of that letter, in the last paragraph, I instruct anybody to go and read. And then it becomes instructive. Then you begin to ask yourself questions. Are people benefiting for this?
Well, that is one allegation that
yes,
has been
are people
made.
benefiting
From a continuation of this situation?
Of this situation.
Because if the military was to be bloody-minded, they could only be that because they have orders to go ahead and be bloody-minded. Nigerians were further confused when there was this whole matter about granting pardon to Boko Haram. Now we have repented Boko Haram soldiers. I don't know if the military has gone as far as absorbing them into the army, but we have heard in the news that some Boko Harams have gone. They've been de-indoctrinated. If that is the question.
I know that I'm not a lawyer. The power of clemency lies with the president. The power of clemency lies with the president. But I don't know whether that power extends to the point of granting clemency to terrorists or who you call. These are areas in which you need to test the waters of our constitution to look at the limits of the powers of agencies and institutions of government. These are where you test the checks and the balances in the constitution. Because it was the presidency that granted, and the president has the power of clemency to say, okay, you are a criminal, your sins are, you are pardoned or whatever. But I don't know whether it extended to that. And I thought that senior lawyers, the Nigerian Bar Association, and the rest of it could and should have challenged the president and test that constitutional waters and let the court interpret whether the president has that power to do that. But, if we don't test the Constitution, it does not become a watertight document. The American Constitution was tested and is still being tested over and over and over to make it what? A watertight document, because whatever decision that is arrived at by the Supreme Court becomes a precedent, becomes part and parcel of what your law is, because that interpretation. Because you give repentant, someone that is radicalized, is repentant, when even nations are. Don't forget, we are also warned that when ISIS was taken out of Iraq, was taken out of Syria, that The next corridor and the next window they are settling down is in the Mali, Niger, Nigerian axis. Along that axis, that's where they are making their new home. And in what we have responded to that, in what we have dealt with that issue, in what we have required a foreign assistance to do. It was easier for America to come and rescue in that same corridor, in that same region. Why can't we seek their help to deal with this particular issue?
Part of the issue perhaps is, there are so many allowances that we have to make in our political life. There are people who have likened, the Niger Delta situation and the pardoning of former militants there and rehabilitation, even being sent abroad, etc., etc., etc. They would bring that particular, point to that which you are making.
The militants were not killing Nigerians. The militants were vandalizing Nigerian resources. It's a different case. Okay. It's a wrong. But this, we have seen...
But in terms of terrorism activities...
That was economic terrorism.
Okay.
Are you getting my point? It was just weakening Nigerian economic...
You think that's a different kettle of fish from what we're dealing with in the Northeast?
From what we are dealing with in the Northeast. What we are dealing with in the Northeast has to do with economic, has to do with political, has to do with human. You know how many lives that have been lost in Borno, Yobe, Axis?
That's the whole point.
It's about the value of a Nigerian life.
1 second, please. Let me bring Reverend Dominic on, who's called in from Alimosho. Good morning, Dominic. Reverend Dominic.
Good morning, Yori.
Good morning. Good morning, sir. Go right ahead, please.
Good morning, sir.
Please, I apologize for you to give me 90 seconds.
Please go ahead, Reverend. Just go ahead. Take what you need.
We have passed where we have advocated for the service chief to be changed. If you remember, you recall our tapes in this program last year. We have said it several times and we have passed here. Let's talk about solutions. The solution of Boko Haram is not in machinery. It's not even in guns. It's not in helicopter. The solution is, I've said before, let the elders of the North, political elders, business elders, what do I call it again? Religion is not part of it. Political elders and the businessmen in North, if they come together and say enough is enough, the Boko Haram will stop. How? The people who pay the bills for fuel and for vehicles and for armor will withdraw. The people who support them politically, give information, will withdraw. And this war will end. No other thing will end it. I want to correct Dr. Jide to say this. How will you say Nigeria should fly our flag half-mast? They are ordinary farmers. We have blamed them of going to farm because they didn't take permission. If the young man they saved from America in Lake Chad is a Nigerian, we could have told him, there's a war in Lake Chad. And Boko Haram, why do you live here? This is life, we live here. How are you going to flag a flag for ordinary? And you let me say this. It is a sin to call Nigerians ordinary. It's a sin to call a Nigerian an ordinary person. It's a sin to use an ordinary Nigerian. All Nigerians are equal before God and man and constitution. But they're peaceful farmers. So by now, why should you flag a half flag? Other people. Maybe if it's the Dominic or Dr. Jide or Yori, maybe the flag will go down. But what I'm trying to say, solution is the elders of the North, the political elders, the economic elders, maybe religious people to come together to say, this is our children, enough is enough. When we do that, they will remove the sponsor of the financial sponsor. They will do political side of it, which is from the political elite. Buhari has done well. General Buhari has done well. I will say 1 million times. Because by this time 4 years ago, we are asking when we bomb explode in Lagos. But today, push it to the north. But there's a so much in between the system. And that is political elders and business elders.
Yeah.
If they do that today, Boko Haram will end the year today. Machinery will stop it. Thank you for the opportunity, sir.
Thank you very much, Reverend Dominic. Now, Reverend Dominic, if I had to put it into one line, he's saying there's more to Boko Haram than meets the eye.
The money. Central bank was...
There's more to Boko Haram than meets the eye, is the whole point he's making. And that once we want to really... And it goes back to what I said to you, Dr. Johnson. What is the brief? Do you know the brief Nigeria Army has in regarding to its engagement with Boko Haram?
It is a critical issue. How is Boko Haram funded? What type of support do they enjoy from the society? and from the community.
From community.
Yeah. Central Bank can follow the money. EFCC can follow the money. There are other agencies of governments that can follow. It was easier for Central Bank to track the funding of NSAS protest. Why is it difficult for Central Bank to follow those that are funding terrorism activities in Nigeria? Because you just see that it seems as if these people have more resources than even Nigeria. Their weaponry
and nobody can follow the money.
And then there are international agencies that you could use to track the money.
And nobody's interested in all that. Let me bring in Mr. George. Good morning, Mr. George.
Good morning, Yori.
Thank you for calling in.
Greetings to Dr. Jide Johnson.
Good morning.
Uncle Yori, I want us to look at this subject from this perspective. The excuse that we have heard from the military, some say they don't have sufficient weapons and all that. But look at Chad. You remember the incident where they went to Chad and attacked some communities. The Chadian forces, within 12 hours of that operation, the Chadian forces brought the Boko Haram people to their knees. Uncle Yori, I want to ask you, what weapons do the Chadians have that Nigerian military do not have? I saw the video. I didn't see them using anything that is superior to what our military also have. The point I'm making here is that there is no doubt anymore that there are some merchants of war within our military forces. You remember this country, we once had a chief of defense staff who was caught with hundreds of billions of naira that he could not explain. Till he died, nobody explained that money. And where did he get money? From this war. So some people seem to be benefiting from the war raging on. And that is where I am saying that the president needs to do something.
Wait a minute, Mr. George. What you cited there sort of intrigued me. Which chief of defense staff, hundreds of billions of...
Alibade to be precise.
Oh, okay.
He was chief of defense staff. Are you forgetting the case?
Yeah. I hear you.
That case is closed, or on ceremonial is closed. But these are monies that belong to Nigeria. And this is not, that's the only one that you can point out. There are many, but the point I'm trying to make is that some people are profiting from this war. If you want it to end, there are some people that will bring it to an end. If these people want it to end,
exactly.
It is the duty of the president to insist that the war will end. Somebody was asking about brief. What brief were the military giving?
I wasn't asking that question as a matter of fact, but it doesn't really matter who is asking the question because it's an intriguing question.
The president's brief should be that you, the commander, go and get rid or bring this war to an end.
Exactly.
Bring him to me and I will deal with him.
Thank you very much.
That has not been done.
Thank you very much, Mr. George. Because military generally, all these people in uniform, disciplined forces, they act by and large with orders. Now, without an order from the commander-in-chief to take out Boko Haram, God knows what orders they are working with. But it does seem to those of us that are not, professional military people, that we have a hard time believing that the Nigerian army cannot take out Boko Haram. It's just that perhaps they haven't gotten the order to go ahead and do so.
Uncle Yori, I want to read something. There are many strands and layers of the causes that require different solutions, approach, and attitudes. Drug, indoctrination, fundamentalism, gun trafficking, hate culture, human trafficking, money laundering, religion, poverty, unemployment, poor education, revenge, and international are among factors that have effect on Boko Haram. One single prescription cannot cure all these ailments that combine Boko Haram. I just read a section that I pointed out in a Obasanjo letter. As far back as 2013, December 13, 2013, 7 years ago, this letter is here. I'm not a military expert. I'm just a strategic communication person. But if going through this, just this paragraph in the 8th page, has given me, and he said we can't use the conventional military approach to fight this war. And he made some recommendations. And 7 years down the line, rather than for issues for Boko Haram to de-escalate, the issue is escalating. And coming back to what is the brief? How do we deal with this particular issue? Are people benefiting from this crisis. He raised issue concerning, one of the people that prosecuted Boko Haram under Jonathan administration as head of the military became Minister of Internal Affairs, and then he made money, bought houses in Dubai, and he said he made money from snake charming. You recall? We made money from snake, and we went to bed and we were sleeping.
Dr. Johnson,
follow the money. Once you follow the money, track the money. Have a traction. You know those that are sponsoring Boko Haram. Then you know those. Okay, what has happened to the assassination of Alex Bade? He raised the issue. What has happened to he was returning from his farm in Nasarawa, coming back to Abuja, and then he was assassinated. A former chief of defense staff of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You see, this issue of Boko Haram, it's beyond comprehension.
There's more to it than meets the eye. End of story. I think that's about as much as we can say, because there are some other points that you made and that everybody has been making. Unfortunately, when there is war like this, which we have declared, there will be businesses as well attached to it. Yeah. And so if you were to suddenly have peace, there'll be a lot of multimillionaires that would have to look elsewhere.
Just watch this movie, Lord of War.
Okay, I hear you, Dr. Johnson.
Watch this movie, Lord of War. So you have an understanding about.
Indeed, it's a very complicated issue, the whole Boko Haram thing. But let's move on. The other thing, another subject matter. Over the weekend, I was reminded of a story that happened a bit earlier. That is the Lagos State government talking about
removal of pension.
Removal of the jumbo pension that gives its governors. We were subsequently we were to hear that there are other governors that are wagging their fingers. We have no compulsion. We are under no obligation whatsoever to toe the Lagos line or follow the Lagos example. Let Lagos do what it wants. We have no idea or no intention anytime soon of removing the perks that we give to our former governors. Let's look at that when we come back from this short break. On this second leg, talk about another topical issue. Remember the moral issue about pensions, and especially about the super pension that former Lagos governors get. When you've been a Lagos governor, at the end of your term, there are certain entitlements. That's where the whole super pension scheme came about. Things like getting brand new cars, I think
a house in Lagos,
a house in Abuja, all of this after leaving office. One of the Lagos governors, past Lagos governor, Babatunde Raji Fashola, has spoken on the matter at the time when the story broke, that he just couldn't justify it, and so he passed it up the offer. Why did you pass up the offer? I just couldn't justify it morally. So without prejudice to whatever anybody else thinks, he said, even though he was entitled by the law the way they stand, he just couldn't justify it. Now I understand Lagos is working to, amend the law, so that will be a thing of the past. But interestingly, as we were speaking, I thought that they were onto, something good. Governments, other state governments have said that, well, Lagos, each man to his own. Lagos can do whatever it wants, and but we have no plans in that direction. Abia, I believe, Adamawa, Katsina, Akwa Ibom, among others, are saying that every man to his own. We shall leave the pension laws the way we. So if we come back to the moral question of where do people get the idea from that it is fit and proper to get such super pensions simply because you were elected governor?
These are areas where you need institution. I wish Chief Gani Fawehinmi were to be alive. The Nigerian Bar Association, if they are looking for a spokesperson, I'll do it for them for free. To address some of these issues, we must test the waters of the Constitution. We must take these things to court and let court invalidate all of these actions, all of these obnoxious, feudalistic, monarchical kind of laws.
Yeah,
it's the queen and the king that are entitled to, and the landlords forever. How can the state take care of you for 4 years, and then after that 4 years, for the rest of your life, you begin to take care of all your... And it's commendable for states that have started...
To be clear, Dr. Johnson, for those that might not know the details of the story, I don't think anybody is talking about against a pension, a reasonable pension. It is this jumbo...
It should be a severance package.
It's a jumbo package that they award themselves, those states that have such laws on their books, that is what I think
Exactly. There should be a
commenting on.
severance package. It should be a severance. It's not only at the state level. What we have at the national level concerning the National Council of State and the rest of it. These are issues we need to look into. Why should the state continually be paying you when you are in office? The state gives you all you require. So there should be a severance package. I'm not totally against severance package. Once and for all, we pay you this. Thank you for serving the state. You've done well, but if you are impeached, you know you are not entitled to it. But if you succeed in your tenure, you complete your tenure, you are paid. But this, how do you justify that? And when the Minister of Work said that he accepted it, he had collected it, it might be a problem for him in the future. Because when he left office as the governor, he became a serving minister. And it's not only him, there are many of them. We are not sure whether Amici passed his zone as the Rivers State governor and all other state governors that are in the president cabinet. Because you can't justify it. 6 cars every 3 years, a house in Abuja. That's why the action of Lagos State must be commended. The action of Imo State has already repealed it in 2019. Zamfara State has repealed that the Kwara is about doing something about it. And we want to appeal to all other state government. Do these things. The debt profile you are putting on your state is too much for you to think of yourself alone. And this is where the Nigerian Bar Association comes in. These bodies, these are institutions that are required to deepen democracy. This is where Nigerian Guild of Editors comes in. This is where the Nigerian Union of Journalists comes in. This is where the academia, which I belong to, comes in to question the rationality behind such laws. Such laws should be rendered unconstitutional because if you challenge it up to the Supreme Court, I am sure with public sentiment and public outcry, the Supreme Court will throw the law away. And once the Supreme Court throws the law away, then it becomes null and void and of no effect.
Well,
but we keep quiet.
Since we haven't done it yet.
Since we haven't done because we don't test. We don't test the waters of our Constitution.
So,
we must.
So what do you think out there, at home? Colin, and let's know what you think about this particular issue, because this law wasn't suddenly put in place yesterday. Mr. Oyewole is on the line already. Mr. Joshua in Irewole, good morning, sir.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
And I agree with Dr. Jide Johnson.
It's a pleasure to be with
First,
you.
I would like to ask him a question by saying who or what has failed Nigeria? Who or what has failed Nigeria? I want to ask him that question.
In what context?
Who or what has failed Nigeria?
Okay.
My answer,
Yes.
Okuyori,
Yeah.
is the elite, including Dr. Jide Johnson sitting down there. The elite, like he mentioned, the journalists, the core group of the journalists, Guild of Editors. He mentioned the MBA and all that. These are the elite groups. They are the ones drafting the laws for the politicians to wreck Nigeria. They are the ones drafting teaching the politicians the sense to destroy Nigeria. And they come to the public to complain about it. So I want to ask him who in the sense that I do not hold President Buhari responsible. I do not. If I'm an exception, I love to be that exception. I do not hold him responsible. The buck stopped at his table. But the president is not the father of every one of us. I know my parents. And Dr. Jide's parents. This is a national issue that now we should address in a proper way to solve that problem. And I want to put it to him in this manner. You see, when he started, he was talking like somebody exonerating America, Nigeria is bad. I'm sorry, that kind of pedestrian communication is not helping us. Sorry, Okuyori. When something happened in Lekki, I am a humanist. We're talking about life. One person's life matters. So I love one human life. What we were saying about Lekki is who produced dead bodies of what you call massacre. It was bad reporting, pedestrian reporting, right? In the north, we have bodies of people who died. How can you people come and incite people by calling a massacre? And they went on rampage and burnt down the whole city, and no massacre happened. So that is what we are interrogating. As the elite, are they properly informing the public about what is going on? finally, Okwuyori, I congratulate you. Your place of work has just been awarded in the great place to work.
Okay.
And I heard your voice. You have a great voice. Some good things are happening to Nigeria.
Oh dear,
I congratulate
thank you very
the
much.
nation.
Oh,
Not
dear.
we solve their own problem as the Reverend said when they are ready. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for calling in, and indeed, thank you very much for the nice things you said about TVC. Okay, Dr. Johnson.
Well, when
he brought
I
quite a number of
highlighted
issues
the
together.
issue, I didn't think I exonerated myself. And if you has followed the trend, I have said that there are institutions that sustain democracy.
Sorry, sir. Could I just ask you, sort of redirect you to evaluate his assertion that the elite is the problem of Nigeria?
Well, for any democratic society, it is the middle class. The middle class is critical to the survival of any democratic society.
Do we have a middle class?
No, it's been annihilated since.
Do we have a middle class in Nigeria? The way sociologists categorize it?
It's either you are poor or you are rich. In Nigeria, it's either you are poor or you are rich, and then we become materialistic. We judge people by materialistic things, not by the content of their, not by the content of their character. I'm not holding brief for anybody, but I've identified institution. The problem of Nigeria has to do with failure of some certain institutions that should take responsibility. How many people in the academia do you see coming on set to come and talk about issues of Nigeria? Everyone is looking for one political appointment or the other. How many? How many do you see?
So who is looking out for the masses?
Exactly.
That Commonwealth of ours.
That's where
who is watching that?
That's where the problem is. And there are various institutions within the society, professional groups, association, labor union. All of these are meant to take responsibility, you and I, and then erase the particular issue that is about pedestrian pointing. I know when people begin to talk about what he's talking about with respect to NSAS and the rest of it, commending the president for doing a job or not doing a job. I don't belong to any political party, and I'm not a paid spokesperson for any political party. You can commend the president if you want to commend the president. Everything is in the public domain. But you know what history does? History put people in the right positions they belong to. After their tenure, people will write the history. Some people will feel free to write about it. But it's very, very clear and evident that, look, what happened in Lekki is there in the public domain. History will put it in the right place. What happened in the north is there in the public domain. History will put it in the right place. Okay. But the failure of the society has to do with you and I taking one form of responsibility or the other. And there are institutions of the state that are meant to play roles. I've identified DBA, I've identified NUJ, I've identified NGE, which some of which I belong to. I didn't exonerate myself. Okay. He should tell us which one he belongs to, because it's a responsibility, it's a joint responsibility for every one of us to take that responsibility.
I want to thank Samuel in the UK for holding on all this while. Good morning, sir. Please go ahead now. Samuel?
Hello?
Hello, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just to, speak about the... Good morning anyway, gentlemen in the studio.
Thank you for calling in.
Yeah,
good morning.
Regarding the issue of the job pension, trying to attack what the last speakers, he was saying something that this issue don't supposed to be argued upon, because millions of Nigerians are suffering. And Dr. Gina had just mentioned something that's supposed to be done. All we needed to do is just to give support onto that. Let every Nigerian speak out about this very issue. Somebody cannot just have 4 years after taking all the necessary payment and all the remuneration, and after then you keeping that person throughout his life, you give them 6 cars a year and all those things. It does not work anyway. There are millions of people are suffering. There are no infrastructures, no job for the youth and everything. So this is an issue that needs to be addressed on the whole state.
Okay.
When he's saying that it's not the fault of the president, and saying that everybody that is the lawmakers and this they are giving the elites or the politicians the idea. The politicians are Nigerians. They don't come from anywhere. They are living in that. It's just a simple truth that there's no point somebody accumulating the money, the wealth, he cannot finish before he dies, and then you let others die. And
okay. Thank you very much for calling in, Samuel. I appreciate your call. Thank you very much. He went to another aspect, I believe, because he's talking about accumulating much, much more than you need. That's one kettle of fish again, so to speak. We're talking about people who the laws enable people to hand to them on a platter of gold a brand new car every so frequently. In fact, maybe a couple, maybe 2 new cars, a house.
3 years.
Every 3 years. So the part of it that Samuel was talking about there was why do we have those kind of laws in a poor society like ours, in the sense that we're not Abu Dhabi exactly when it comes to wealth.
Even in Abu Dhabi, they don't do that.
Well,
even in Abu Dhabi, they don't have
such. I mean, those ones. I just made that example because Abu Dhabi, people like that, places like that have Lamborghini as police cars, for example. So I'm saying that we are not wealthy in that sense. Is why Samuel is questioning.
Wastages we are wealthier than those nations. It's just that we have a lot of wastages in terms of public funding. That's the problem is. For you to make money after leave office in America, you look for a book deal. Yes. People write books. Obama made the money made by writing a book deal. He got $60 million by writing a book, by getting a book deal. So that's why they don't have this kind of pension which we have in Nigeria that government will be paying over and over and over time again. You see,
but there are some who are saying there's nothing wrong with it, and those are the people that are saying that we're not doing anything about it. But there are other states that are saying that they can't justify it morally.
To be challenged. Okay. Anyone that has listened to my that has listened to my lecture, from 2007 will tell you that from day one I was totally against this obnoxious feudalistic monarchical allowance. It's the feudal, it's the other feudal system or under monarchical government that you have this type of structure, and it is responsibility of institutions of the state, institutions of professional institutions to challenge some of this action. And by taking it to court, the NBA has the resources, the NG has the resources, the Nigerian Union of Journalists has the resources. Chide Johnson does not have the resources to go to court. Yori Folani does not have the resources to go to court. But when we come together under a collective, an umbrella association, it is easier for us to
we think there is anything that is wrong with it. Yes. Because bear in mind that there are those that are saying there's nothing wrong with it. It might be a bit like Trump. It might be a bit like Trump. Let us not forget that 80 million people see the man as 80 million. That's even about election. We are not talking about policies. We are not talking about policies. I know. I'm talking about attitude. But let me take David from Victoria Island. Good morning, David.
Hello. Good morning, Uncle.
Thank you very much for calling in. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my name is David. I'm calling from here.
Sure.
Yeah. First and foremost, I want to express my condolences to the family of those who lost their life in the gruesome murder in Borno State.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, I want to comment on the last caller. That's Joshua from Irewole.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Not the last caller, but go ahead. Yeah. But very briefly, because we're running out of time. Go ahead, please.
Okay. My point is this. I want to say it is not good enough, especially for those who have never made their intention, the APC callers, to be condemning the whatever the guest on the show says. It's not good enough. It's only Yakub who has never hidden his intention to condemn whatever this government does wrong. So he has always said it as it is. So I just want to say, whenever there are national issues, burning issues like this that affect the entire country, they should not bring politics into it. So
thank you very much. Really appreciate you. Thank you very much. Thank you. My time is up. I appreciate your call, but I don't think I can't speak for Dr. Jones, but I don't think he took it as any sort of a
well, it's part of the job, And, I was discussing with a colleague of ours outside before coming on set.
Exactly.
We journalists, what we face,
we don't always
you are like the door, probably a door. When people are going in, they slam you when they are going in, and when you are going out, they slam you when they are going out.
So it's about exchanging ideas.
So when you are at the door, and the media is the door, you receive praises, you receive insults, you receive snacks. So it's part of the...
You don't take any of it personally.
No, it's not an offense.
It's about the exchange of ideas. So as valuable as your ideas are, the same thing with his own. Sorry about that, Ojari. So that's our program today.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much for coming on. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. But as always, do everything you can to be compliant with COVID-19 regulations, distancing, washing your hands, and all of that. Yori Folani, I'll be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye-bye for now.